Bienvenidos a Disrupt Everything, podcast series by Isra García. Reinvéntate a ti mismo y cambia lo que más te importa.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are, I guess, listening one new episode of Disrupt Everything podcast series. And, this time in English. And what it means that we have an international guest. We have a disruptor. We have an innovator. We have a powerful human being. This time we have a quite interesting hybrid. We have today in Disrupt Everything podcast series a guy who works with intimacy, creativity, relationships, self-worth, desire, family, and someone who is writer, muralist, coach, and has an interesting project called PHL and another project who is getting the attention and who is joining four aspects as ayahuasca, intimacy, food, and the culinary world. Let's put it that way. Our guest today is Jens Cromer. Jens, thank you, and I apologize for my rusty English.
Your English is much better than my Spanish. Thank you for bending over to the English side, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you for. I'm so glad to have you here because of the story that connects me with you, which is we've been sharing the same house for 1 month. We are about to finish our husband relationship for a while, and not for forever.
Let's say we're hitting pause.
And I've had so many wonderful conversations with you. I mean, for me, to be honest, it's one of the most important takes that I'm going to leave from United States when I leave in 4 days.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's very flattering. Appreciate
your vulnerability, your warmth, your authenticity in the sense of a human being, and yourself. I mean, has impacted me so much that I think the third day that we were talking, I just asked you, hey, would you mind to be interviewed in my podcast? And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for this time. We have these brief conversations, sometimes shorter, sometimes larger, but we had them, and it enlightened me a lot, and it helped me a lot. So
talk about real shit, man.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about real shit. Yeah. Change. To all listeners, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, Change is a disruptor because he is reinventing his own will, and he's reinventing his life. Jens, ayahuasca, as I said, intimacy, food, plants, and the culinary world. What's the link or connection for all of this? What's the story?
That's a good question. What connects all of it?
And what's the story?
Besides passion for all of these things, I think it was a natural progression through things. They just, before I worked with ayahuasca, I was in entertainment. I was a TV producer and development executive. And that was the job that I had sort of dreamed of. I had made it, quote unquote, made it in Hollywood. And, that's what I moved out to Los Angeles to do. And I was incredibly unhappy. And so after quitting that job, I went down to Peru to work with ayahuasca, during which point I realized that I got present to all the things in my life that were not making me happy and were a drain on me, and where, I wasn't exactly who I wanted to be. And there was a lot of junk in the way. I think the 3 questions I would ask everyone, which I then subsequently, in retrospect, asked myself, was, who are you? Who do you want to be? And what's stopping you? And that third one, what's stopping you, for me, was just myself. It was just beliefs I had in myself that were limiting and kept me small. So I can't talk in front of people. I get stage fright. That's just another opportunity for me to stay small and not connect with a lot of people and be able to talk in front of people, right? So there was tons of examples of that. Working with ayahuasca, I did a 10-day retreat where I sat for 5 ceremonies in 7 days, and then added San Pedro after that. So 2 very powerful medicines in a very short amount of time, which just completely transformed my life. And not only that, I was freed from a lot of self-doubt. I managed to end that retreat by falling head over heels in love with myself. Not in a dangerous way, but in the sense that I forgave myself for everything, and I just felt like I could be fully expressed in who I wanted to be, and I had complete permission for that. I didn't need to second guess everything. I didn't need to not pursue that one thing that sounds crazy and like a long shot, but that's only because I was picturing it as a long shot. Just go do that thing. So another thing that happens with ayahuasca is you have to be super conscientious of what you put into your body. There's the dieta. There are certain things you can't eat, Basically, you're inviting a plant into your body to take over and influence you, and therefore you need to turn your body into soil. So what are the things you would put into soil to help a plant grow? Well, you wouldn't put salt. You wouldn't put sugar. You wouldn't put alcohol. Just fruits, vegetables, the things that eventually become compost. So that's what you're filling your body with. You're also abstaining from sex. You're abstaining from sex because the primal urge we have for sex is too powerful. A plant cannot supersede that. Men wage wars because of sex, because they love this woman who lives across the sea, so I'm going to send all of my men to slaughter because I just want to fuck that girl. That's how humans work. Sex can't, ayahuasca can't compete with sex. So you got to take that out as well. Can't do drugs. There's pharmaceuticals that are, obviously on the no-go list for very real medical pharmaceutical reasons. You could literally die because they work in the same neurological pathways. But beyond that, most of the abstinence that you have to engage in is just indicative of the sacrifice that you're going to. You're going to let go of a lot of stuff to get through this transformation. Ayahuasca was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most rewarding experience of my life, and completely changed the course of my life and how I relate to people and what I put in my body. And so I just kind of started to get this gratitude, this amazing gratitude for the things that I was putting into my body. And I had loved food for a long time, and I just kind of got, look, I don't eat the healthiest, but I eat with love. We went to dinner tonight at a restaurant I fucking love. And if you can go to a place, they don't have to be high end. They can be street tacos. But you can tell the people who make it with love. And if you commune with those people and you see them and you become a regular, there's a communal thing that's connecting, and it just raises everything up. So I sort of got permission. I think I always wanted to be involved with food in some capacity. I just didn't necessarily know how that would be. And another thing that happens with ayahuasca is you sort of lose, at least for me, I lost some of that, like a lot of that critical voice, not only just for myself, but in general. If you asked me 5 years ago, what could I do to be in the food world? I'd be like, I'd be a food critic. But I'm not interested in being a food critic because I don't want to write about something if I don't enjoy it. I want to write love letters to restaurants. I don't want to rip people down. They're trying their best. Everybody's just trying their best. So one thing led to another, intimacy, relationship. How did that come up? Well, Vanessa, basically I fell in love with a woman who had just been on a journey of discovery of her own sort of sexuality and expression and what have you. And I had always been very repressed sexually, a very traumatic, I guess, sexual upbringing. I never had any sex ed. The first time I ever made out with my eighth grade girlfriend, 2 days later she broke up with me for my best friend. So it was just like, don't fall in love with somebody. They're just going to rip your heart out and then be with your best friend. And then when I finally this might be too racy for your podcast, but when I finally got a high school girlfriend after I graduated, I finally allowed myself to have a girlfriend. First time I received oral sex from her, I farted in her face. So I was just absolutely terrified. I was like, oh my God, even if something good does happen, I'm just going to embarrass myself and I can't do this thing ever again because Jesus, I've just farted in this girl's face. It was terrible. So I had so much shame on top of that, right? And then I finally went off to college a couple months after that. Nobody wanted to be a virgin in college. I certainly was, but I was ashamed of it. And so I acted cool and tough like I had. So when I finally did lose my virginity at college, I couldn't even, she climbed on top and I climaxed in like half a second, and she like snickered because she knew and like was like laughing at me. And so I couldn't even tell her the reason why I was so fast was because I was a virgin, because I already had this reputation as someone who wasn't a virgin, and it was just like one thing after another. So I had literally no idea how long it took me to have sex after that. Just most of my 20s were wasted just like in secret shame and embarrassment of all of that, just like imprisoned by those secrets, And so I had, with Vanessa, with my current girlfriend, she had basically, however she did her experience and growth, she was able to give me such good, loving, positive support. And I would have my upsets and I would have my freakouts and those old behaviors that wanted me to just run from sex, that she just held a safe space and basically coached me and supported me through the experience and freed me of all those old stories about why I couldn't do that thing. And of course, when I decided I couldn't do that thing because it was too traumatic, it was the only thing I thought about. It was a secret thing, but I was obsessed with it. That was the only thing I wanted. It's the only thing I thought about all day. And yet I still couldn't have it. And then even when I got to become, someone who could have it because I had girlfriends or whatever, I'd still find a way subconsciously to reinforce that story. So through my current girlfriend, she sort of coached me out of that. And this organization and practice that it's a partnered consciousness practice that we sort of talked about. Do you want me to mention that?
You can mention.
So yeah, the practice is orgasmic meditation. I had for so long would have sexual encounters with women where I physically was in the bed with them, but sensationally I was a mile away. I couldn't feel anything, and I couldn't get aroused. What I realize now in retrospect is that was a defense mechanism. That was, you're not feeling anything, because if you feel something, you're going to have sex with this person. If you have sex with this person's either going to leave you in 2 days, or they're going to make fun of you because you farted in their face. So I realized how that happened, and just the story that I constantly lived into. But I thought I was like broken because I couldn't feel arousal with other people. And then through this practice, I slowly began to thaw and realize that I actually have been feeling these things all along. I just had hit mute on it. And I can also turn the volume back up and feel things. And that has also sensitized me to all these subtle energies that are happening with everyone everywhere. I know when somebody's saying something that is incongruent with how they're feeling, because I can sense it. I can feel it. It raises your attention. All these things that I'm just talking about, Aya, coaching, orgasmic meditation, they just raise your ability to notice and sense and feel into people. My communication is just like through the roof of being able to talk to someone and know what's actually going on with them. It makes my capacity for small talk and nonsense just kind of, that has shrunk, because I just get so much more fulfillment from truly connecting with people.
Because you feel it more. You're more sensitive.
Totally.
More conscious, as we were talking this morning.
Exactly. So that's just what I want to do. You know, I was in a business I was in a garish version of entertainment where it was just about making money. And
why were you happy by that time when you were a TV producer? Where you fulfilled your dream?
I wasn't happy because I moved out here to make a story, to be creative. And the company I had worked at just wanted to make formats and sell them in every territory in the world. So it was just a money-making endeavor. It was a creative enterprise run by sales guys. There's nothing wrong with that. But that wasn't a right fit for me, personally. So I needed to get out of there, and I just didn't know why. And I kind of had lost sight of why I had done the thing in the first place. And I had only ever worked in entertainment on that side of things. I'd never been on the truly creative side. I'd only been on the money-making side. And that just was not for me whatsoever.
Would you love to well, not to come back, but would you love to work in the creative industry, in the TV and in film industry?
Absolutely.
The most creative.
For sure. I mean, you look at any given
background,
historical era in time, storytelling is always a part of the human experience, right?
It is.
And it doesn't matter what area or what era it is, there's always one that is sort of the preeminent form of storytelling. You know, in Shakespeare's time was the Globe Theater. Ancient Greece, you have that sort of, you know, they created all those, like, you know, Oedipus and, you know, these epics and what have you. Now, I mean, it's ironic I write books, but now the preeminent form is film.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, like 5-10 years, you can make the argument that, especially in the United States, that TV is actually a more elevated version of that.
Let's go. You mentioned that if we link the facts and we leave the highlights. I mean, ayahuasca has been the transformative or the kick-starting, put it that way, like the spark,
yep.
No? of
totally
of this new transformation.
Yep.
5 ceremonies.
5 ceremonies
straight
in 7 days. So
isn't dangerous?
It's not dangerous. I guess ayahuasca could be conceivably dangerous in certain respects. There are horror stories. If you Google ayahuasca, tourist dies from ayahuasca.
I try not to Google anything, man.
Right. There was actually a woman.
So also, listeners, don't Google anything. Just try it, experiment it, leave it up.
If you're concerned about it, I'll just address those concerns, because one of my retreat members, her mom sent her all those articles. You're going to die. So she was terrified of it. It's like ridiculous, right? But the reason that happens is like...
it set you for the worst.
Yeah, totally. This is worst case scenario, and if anything better than worst case happens, conceivably that's a win, I guess. But what happens in those instances is, like I said earlier, there are very real, pharmaceutical implications that you need to address. If you follow the rules, you're going to be in the best possible preparation for that. Now, secondarily, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but we have a lot of Western travelers that have heard about this thing and go and are just kind of waving money around, asking around because they don't know how to do and who to find it, and you got to know a guy or whatever it is. Don't have
wannabe.
Exactly. And so if you come around into an impoverished community with a lot of money, that can convince people, holy shit, this is money to pay for my family for 6 months. I've seen this happen. Maybe I can do this thing. And then they'll fake it and then actually give you an irresponsible form of that medicine and do negative things to you. So as long as you're not doing it with someone who'd had, it's like any medicine, right? You go to a doctor who is an expert, who's been trained and knows how to give you the right dose. The only difference between a medicine and a poison is the dose.
Mm-hmm.
You can die from Tylenol if you take enough of it, right? So it's
the dose makes the
medicine. Exactly.
Medicine and the
poison.
And the poison.
For sure. So as long as you go to a retreat center that is trusted and you are responsible with how to, address the health, you're going to be fine.
What was the journey with the five ceremonies in 5 days? 7 days.
5 and 7 days. So there's 2 days on, 1 off, 1 day on, 1 off, 2 days on. So Monday, Tuesday on, Wednesday off, Thursday on, Friday off, Saturday, Sunday on. It was ups and downs, man. They tend to ease you into your experience. So my first ceremony, I wanted to address my self-doubt. And throughout the ceremony, they tend to ease you into ayahuasca. So the first day, they'll give you like a half dose just so it's acclimated to your system. And so I wasn't getting a whole lot. I had heard it's supposed to be this crazy, amazing thing, visuals and, whatever, trance. And I could feel sensation in my body, but of course, I have this narrative, this story in my head that I'm doing it wrong. It's always been there my entire life. So I was like, no, I'm not getting enough. I must be doing it wrong. And I felt it, like this buzzing energy in me, like growing up me like a vine. And then it stopped. And I was like, okay, so I'm feeling something, but it's not moving. What the hell do I do? And then I realized I could move the charge. I can move the energy based on my breathing. And then I realized that everything in my body was draining towards my colon, whereas the stuff that was in my brain that was buzzing drained to my stomach. And I was like, I'm familiar with the purge. I know when you work with ayahuasca, you most famously throw up.
Mm-hmm.
You can also poop, you can also cry, you can also laugh, you can also orgasm. I did not orgasm. It's just however you need healing, right? It's just whatever you need. And so I could feel it in my stomach and then my colon, and it was just kind of a race to the finish, which was going to come first. Came out my colon first. So I went to the bathroom, purged there, lay back down on the mat, and just kind of got the faintest, like barely could see it, visual of a vine, pink and white vine kind of growing across the, screen, I guess, in my visual screen when I have my eyes closed, what I can see. And I heard the shaman come over to the woman sitting right next to me, and he said he had a vision of her with a twin in a past life. And as soon as he said past life like that, I was in Europe in World War I. I was wearing a military uniform. It was a farm in the dead of winter. All the crops were dead, and I was hyperventilating. The thoughts going through my head were, holy shit, they're going to find me, I'm dead. I realized that I see my breath, because it's the dead of winter, so I can see my breath, right? And I see that giant cloud, and I realize it's my breath that kills me. And so, just as soon as I see that, the breath is going to expose me. They're going to find me. And as soon as I make that connection, they light the candle in the middle of the yurt here on planet Earth, and they say, and that concludes tonight's ceremony. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That was like 10 seconds. Like, what do you mean that concludes? I just got started.
But was it 10 seconds really?
It felt like it was 10 seconds.
How long was it?
I mean, the ceremony was like 5 to 8 hours. Who knows, how long I was in that thing. But
it was state of flow.
Totally. What I got present to... The curious thing about ayahuasca is that when you have an experience like that, you go to sleep, and I woke up the next morning feeling like my body was rested, but my brain, the computer, was running overnight. So it just felt simultaneously rested and tired. And just as important as the ceremony is as the group circle, where you share what happened for you the previous night, what your intentions were, what showed up for you, what, is sort of like your download. And I realized that it wasn't some weird, body switch thing happening, so much as I just got this unassailable sense that was me in a previous life. And I wasn't killed by the bad guys. It wasn't the Germans who found me or whatever. It was my own men. I was a coward, and I did not have the emotional capability of killing other people. I couldn't handle it, so I ran. And when you die, as I learned talking to the shamans, when you die in a previous life in an emotionally charged way, that emotional signature, like it's a watermark, can follow you to the next life.
How do you realize that you life, or you were a coward, and what this assertion or this realization?
Sure.
How did you get there? How do you come up with this?
This is the difficult to explain part, right?
This is amazing.
I don't have like a fact, I don't have a historian that I can go to and give me hard facts and proof. I just woke up from sleeping that night and I knew it. I knew exactly what it was. I could not have been more confused at the time, especially when the ceremony ended and they plucked us out. But when I woke up the next morning, I knew.
Become crystal clear.
Crystal clear, 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt. That was the truth, period. And so I go start sharing in group circle, and I realize as soon as I share that with everybody, I can feel my self-doubt is gone. I can just feel like that weight is lifted and it's no longer with me. I learned that lesson. So my first ceremony, which I thought was a failure, and I got 10 seconds out of it. It was not a failure. It was remarkable. So I went back the next night, and then I just blasted off. It was just, I got a full dose. I was in other dimensions. That was like the most visual experience I've ever had. It was unbelievable. And I had that whole day to think about it and prepare and what have you. And at some point you just learn, like, you can't really overthink. You can't really prepare, right? Except to overthink and like convince yourself that you're going to do it wrong, which is pretty much how I did the first one. And the second one, I went to another dimension. I met my spirit animal. I talked to somebody in the void. It was impossibly black, and I asked it a question. I was like, is this where I get to ask questions? And then it said yes in a giant font, and I got to have a couple questions back and forth. I saw my ex-girlfriend. I saw what life would be like with her together in the future. At the point I was still getting over that breakup, and I had never really processed it, She had moved to Amsterdam. We lived together, actually, in this apartment. She moved to Amsterdam, and I just checked out. In retrospect, if you told me the woman I love was moving to Europe for a year, in a heartbeat, I would be like, that's amazing. Where are we moving? But at the time, I was in this very egoic place where I'm not going to do that for them because that's a big ordeal, and let's be honest, this thing's not going to work anyway. So I got to stay here for my career in entertainment. I needed to learn that lesson and take responsibility for that. But, I got to my second ceremony. I had all those things, and I saw that I was, at the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be with her again. And when I got to share the next day at the group circle, I didn't get through it at all. I probably could have quoted you like 5 pages worth of what my vision was. There was so much. But I maybe got 3 sentences out because I was just crying so much. And it was surprising because the night before I had felt so blissful. But there in group circle, I couldn't control it. It just needed to come. And the shaman said, this is your purge. This is what you're needing to, I was obsessed with throwing up. Still hadn't thrown up after 2 ceremonies, Had shit a whole lot. No throw up. And I had all these tears, and I realized I hadn't really cried about my ex-girlfriend and that, the emotional loss of that relationship from my life. And so it came up like, 3 years worth of tears came up, and it was just everywhere. It was ugly. It was like snotty. It was at pitches that only dogs can hear. It was all over the place. And then we finally got a day off after that. So at that point, the shaman had a spiritual consultation with me, had a one-on-one, and he was like, he basically asked me one question, which was like, you know, I thought this was all about my ex, the reason I was here, and, you know, I was on my way, and so on and so forth. And he just asked me, he just threw a dart and was like, tell me about your relationship with your father, which I did not see coming at all. I was like, what do you mean? It's fine. But obviously there was a lot more to it, and that finally got me thinking about how my relationship with my father was, because I always assumed it was fine. And there was, be very clear, he was an amazing provider. He's an amazing human being. He was great in so many ways, but kids and parents, man, you find some way to make your parent wrong. You know, whatever you need, it seems, is the one thing that they didn't give or whatever. And, you know, he worked a lot, so he just wasn't there much, so I didn't really get to know him. And there was sort of the trauma of omission of getting to know my father and him being there in formative parts of me growing up in life and learning how to be a man and how to date and, you know, all that stuff. It just wasn't there. I didn't have the relationship with either of my parents. I was so insecure I couldn't even ask my parents about, like, stuff that I wanted to know. And this was before the internet, so I couldn't Google anything either. So it was just kind of like, when I was 12, we moved from the house we grew up in, where there was lined up and down the street with people who had kids around my age. And then at 12, we moved to a block that didn't have any kids whatsoever. So all of a sudden, I went from having all the friends in the world to having no friends whatsoever. And that was like middle school, high school, you know, the part where you learn to be insecure. And I didn't have any friends, so I didn't know what to do. You know, it's crazy that I just realized that I didn't know how to make friends, and that was like the big thing, right? I just wanted connection and didn't know how to get it, right? So I'm getting present to that after ceremony too. He tells me that. And my retreat, like I said, they offer San Pedro and ayahuasca. At the time,
I was going to ask you this.
At the time, you had to pick. Do you want 4 ayahuasca plus 1 San Pedro, or do you want 5 ayahuasca? And I wanted to do ayahuasca. I wanted to have the ayahuasca and San Pedro experience.
5 and 1?
I wanted to have 4 in 1. So I had a lot done after the 2 ceremonies, and then I went into my 3rd ceremony with this attitude of, all right, Mama Aya, let's do a lot more this time, because we got a schedule. I got to be free of this after 4. And she didn't like that. Ceremony 3 was the worst night of my life. I didn't get any visions whatsoever. I was in fever sweats. I was nauseous. I desperately wanted to throw up, but couldn't. I was sweating so much that I literally had to peel off my t-shirt and on a wet plop on the ground. It was disgusting. And I was just there in my own personal hell for 4 or 5 hours. Working through it, right? And yeah, exactly. That's the good reframe, is this thing isn't happening to you, this thing is happening for you. I wasn't present to any of that at the time. And, you know, everyone else in that ceremony was like, wow, that ceremony was so gentle. I was like, the fuck it is. What are you talking about? You know, and so they told me this is just part of it, and so on and so forth. And I realized my sense of entitlement and trying to tell Mother Ayahuasca how to do her job. That dirt don't stick, man. That was, I needed to be humbled, and she definitely did it. And I was just like, okay, I surrender. I'm sorry. You win. You know, I don't want to wage that fight anymore. So I went back, and, you know, and I had a lot of time because we had a free day after that. So I had a lot of time to just stew in that experience of just like, fuck, man, I really got to learn humility, you know? And so 4th one came around. I got another past life experience. In this case, you know, I still hadn't thrown up. I was still obsessed with that. I had learned that emotional blockage with my father is called a pulsario, and it is a physical entity that was living in my stomach. Whether or not you believe these things, these weaknesses, or, you know, psychological traumas or whatever, whether or not you believe they're physical or not is irrelevant. It is helpful to conceptualize them that way. And therefore, if your self-doubt is a physical thing, You need to get it the hell out of your body. That's what the purge is about. That's what you're trying to throw up, or you're trying to shit, or you're trying to cry, you're trying to whatever. That's what you're getting out of your body. It's like an exorcism, almost.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fourth ceremony, I'm humbled. I go in with the right attitude, I hope, you know. And in this one, I'm in some Mesoamerican tribe, what seems like at least hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Very primal. We were hunters. We had a village. It was in the jungle. And I was this little twerpy kid. I was very skinny. And it was the day of the hunt. And I went up, and basically what I forgot to tell you earlier, or what I omitted earlier, was that the animal spirit totem that I had experience with is a black jaguar. So it came to me in a dream the day before my first ceremony. I saw it again the second ceremony, looking at me just like you are, with no reaction, at which point I realized it wasn't trying to kill me, it was just my friend. It was looking out for me. And as soon as I made that realization, it sort of turned into dust and moved away. And then in ceremony 4, we're having the hunt in this American culture, however many hundreds or thousands of years ago. And I get to the front of the crowd. There's a crowd in a square, and there's music, and there's dancing, and the shaman's doing something. I don't know what the hell's going on, so I'm skinny, so I kind of sneak through the crevices and get to the front and see what the hell's going on. And I realize he holds up, right as I get there, he holds up this jaguar skull. Today's the day we hunt the jaguar. The jaguar is the apex predator, but we're going to take the power back, you know. And so whatever statement it is that we hunt the jaguar, we're doing that today. So I immediately feel dread. I feel just like this energy in my stomach. It's just sinking. It feels like it drops through the floor. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking do this, because I know the jaguar is my friend. How do I get out of this? I will go up to my dad, who's next to my older brother, who is like, you know, the stud warrior, and I'm the little twerp younger brother. And I'm like, I'm sick, I can't do this. And they both kind of roll their eyes like, yeah, right. Why don't you stay behind while we go do the grown-up work, and you can, you know, take care of the women and children. And so they all leave, all the warriors leave, and I'm like, thank God I dodged that bullet. It isn't like a minute later when I hear a blood-curdling scream, and I run out, and the scene is like, you know, a John Woo movie where there's like a basket of fruit moving in like slow motion through the air, and there's just chaos and everyone's moving around it, and right in the middle of it is this massive black jaguar. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And it locks eyes with me just like you are right now, and doesn't blink, and it's coming straight for me. If I had a weapon, I would not have any chance against this thing. And I don't have a weapon. So it's like growling, it's baring its fangs, it's looking at me like you're dead meat. And it starts, you know, coming closer and speeding up. And I'm just like, please don't do this. Please. With my eyes, I don't know how else to communicate. And I just like, please don't do this. And it gets faster, and it gets louder, and it gets faster and closer. And it comes, and it's like 20 feet away, and I'm like, I'm fucking dead. Please don't do this. Like, I'm your friend, I swear. And about 8 feet away, it just stops on a dime and sits down. And it's like, oh, I recognize you. At which point, a spear comes ripping through the air and stabs it in its abdomen, and it's dead. And this is like, it died because I made it stop. So I just collapse on the ground in tears because I killed my friend. And the spear went into its stomach. When I wake up out of that experience, which is exactly what happens after I start crying in the scene, my pulsario has been wounded, and I throw up. So I finally got that, whatever the start of that blockage with my dad, that thing came up. Fifth ceremony, I basically had been kind of obsessed with, you know, my ex-girlfriend. And
This was San Pedro?
this was still ayahuasca. I actually, what I got present to after number 4 was You know, I didn't get as much healing as I wanted to, and I was feeling very down. And the proprietor of the place was like, "Oh, you want to do both? Well, why don't you just do 5 ayahuasca ceremonies, and then you'll move your flights, and you can do San Pedro as well." So I had created all of the obstacles just in my head. Story of my life. We're learning patterns. That's what she teaches you, your patterns. And so then I get to the 5th one. Am I taking too long?
No.
The 5th one, what I got present to was I had been sort of very attached to my ex-girlfriend and thinking that if I was going to be in love, I was going to be in love with her. However, she showed me different. There's these things that happen with psychedelics and where you hear terms like ego death and what have you, and I saw my own death and what have you, and it sounds very scary, but it just resets how you relate to death and that experience and the freedom that comes.
Yeah, liberating.
Exactly. And so I was shown the circle of life. I saw a seed drop to the soil. I saw in the spring it turned into a little plantlet. In summer it grew in like full bloom, and then fall it kind of started to wilt, and then winter it died, and I just saw that cycle. And then it cut over to humans, and I saw a little boy grow and get older and meet a girl and fall in love, and they have a kid, and the kid they raise. They have a little girl. She grows up. She gets older. She meets a guy. She falls in love. They have a baby. The baby grows up. It gets bigger. It meets someone. It falls in love. So I saw that in plants, and I saw that in people. And that was profoundly freeing. I was like, this is I'm part of this cycle of this, human thing that we're all part of. And there's an Instagram account, which I don't know the name of, but it's famous and it's got millions of followers. And it's basically a photographer and a woman. And the woman is like holding the photographer's hand. And it's always from behind. And she's kind of like dragging him through just like these amazing places all over the world. Just like how do they travel so much? And I basically, in the latter part of that vision, I saw that in a video, first-person video. I was the photographer, except every time the girl looked back at me, and we were kind of moving, and every time she looked back at me, like the scene would change. And when she looked back at me, the face was different every time, which taught me not that I needed to date like a million different women, but that it could be anybody. I don't need to be attached to that one over there.
Attachment.
Exactly. What I'm committed to is seeing the world with a woman I love. What I was attached to was doing that with that ex-girlfriend. And so I had learned through that experience the way that one had ended emotionally was that I had learned the true expression of self-love. I got to fall in love with myself, not in like a narcissistic way, but I have complete approval of everything that I've been through and where I am at this specific time in my life and who I've been with and the relationships in my life and who my family is and who they're not. I was just in complete approval of all of it and knew that I didn't need to be critical and, hate bad movies and talk shit about that or gossip about people or any of that. I could just be a positive impact in my life and those around me. And it completely had reset things. Now, you asked about San Pedro. I did San Pedro after that. San Pedro, if you treat it with respect. So, before I get there.
What is the difference?
Ayahuasca is the grandmother. Shamanically, they'll tell you it's the grandmother. So the all-knowing, wise lady. It's feminine. You ask her for something with your intention, and she'll give you the answers. But it'll be a puzzle to solve. It's feminine. With San Pedro, that's the grandfather. So that's a psychedelic experience, but your eyes are open for that one. You're in your body. That's 4 hours up. You're climbing to the peak of the medicine. 4 hours across. 4 hours down. So it's a 12-hour endeavor. It's a long burn. I went with the first group on their hike. You need, at this retreat center, we always ensure there's a gap day between your last ayahuasca ceremony, free day, and then your San Pedro, because it's just a lot of medicine. It's a lot to put your body through. But I asked to go along with them, even though I couldn't drink the medicine, just to be along with them on the hike. And I took pictures, and that's on the website. That's, that first picture, that was that hike. And it was great. It was beautiful. It was very connected to nature. It's heart opener. It's like, think of like your loving grandfather, except your loving grandfather is nature. It's a very like amazing, just like warm hug. And it has that sort of like psychedelic during the day kind of thing where everything is moving a little bit and they're kind of talking to you, and the clouds are not clouds, they're actually oh, look at that pirate ship, and oh no, look at this person over here. It's like, oh, it's a genie in a lamp. It's like all of that kind of thing. But it's a big heart opener. So there's a lot of love in the grandfather for sure. And it was not without incident. I literally had my best friend at this retreat, and I'm saying literally, she literally fell off a mountain on San Pedro. She thought this certain edge wasn't as steep as it was, lost her footing, fell down. She went missing. We had no idea where she was. She went on her own. Don't go on your own when you're on the top of the mountain. Was she okay
finally?
She tumbled down the mountain, and she landed in a condor's nest. She was not harmed.
Wow.
She walked around trying to figure out, but from the bottom you couldn't see up to where the right place was. She was crossing a river. Actually, on the river is where she slipped and hurt herself, hit her knee. She had to spend the night on the mountain. She was freezing. Ironically, she was the most prepared to do something like that because she packed a bag with a bunch of layers, A, and B, she could speak Spanish. So she was like the perfect person to go through this ordeal. Eventually,
what an experience, man.
Totally. Eventually she worked her way out and noticed that she had basically climbed all the way down the fucking mountain, and she found a family, and they drove her back up to us.
Wow.
The next morning. She was really cold physically, but even so, after all of that ordeal, that was something that she needed to go through, is kind of how she approached it. She had some, as you can imagine, had some stories come up about why it had happened and who did this thing to her and what have you. But even after that ordeal, she said it was the most beautiful experience of my life.
It had to happen that way.
It had to happen that way. Now, I don't recommend falling off of a fucking mountain on psychedelics, but you're almost like a baby in that you're not bracing for impact. So you're just kind of rubber and tumbling down, and she was fine. It's crazy.
What's your biggest takeaways with ayahuasca? Like your three, short and sweet, your three biggest takeaways with ayahuasca.
Three biggest takeaways. I don't know if I've thought of it in those terms, but some of the big takeaways I would give you would be those things that are preventing you from being the person you want to be are all rooted in yourself. In other words, you feel like if you could just get out of this prison cell, you could be that person you always wanted to be. And what I got present to was the fact that that prison cell is locked from the inside. You can just walk over to the door, you can open it, you can step outside. So you just create the obstacles.
And why? With ayahuasca you can start realizing of this fact.
For me, I got present to that and I got a good sight of that, and it helped pluck those things and remove them from my system so that I had permission to do that. Transformation is transformation, right? How many times in our lives have we wanted to transform?
You need that really strong spark to transform.
Exactly.
Yourself.
You need permission to come back a different person. And I think being out of my comfort zone was necessary.
Yeah.
They didn't have any Wi-Fi. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have all of these things that I use. I couldn't drink. I couldn't smoke weed. all of these things where I would normally feel like, fuck, I hate my life right now. Well, maybe if I just self-medicate, I don't have to deal with this, you know. I'll just go out this weekend and drink a whole bunch. And then next day I'll suffer through it hungover. And then on Monday I'll go right back to that job that I don't really like, and I'm not getting a new one because I didn't think about it all weekend. Instead, I was just hungover.
You were more aware and conscious. You are more.
Totally.
And how to pay more attention? How do you realize you increase your consciousness, and then how to pay more attention?
Totally. Absolutely. And that was the second thing I was going to address, was saying, you know, I felt like I had gone into this experience and I could just see the text of something. You know, my girlfriend and I would get in a fight. She's like, you didn't take out the fucking trash. And so then I would take out the trash and I'd come back and I'd be like, cool, the fight's over, right? But it was never about the trash. It was about all the other things that I was not doing and not paying attention and not being where she wanted me to be. That was then pointed at the trash. So when I addressed the trash, which was the text, I was missing all of the subtext of everything that was leading up to that upset about the trash. So coming out of that experience, I realized I had like a lens, like glasses. I finally was wearing glasses, and I could see the subtext for everything. Because we communicate so much non-verbally, and I was just blind to it before then. And then, sort of like everything else we're talking about, I've just kind of been obsessed with developing that ability to be more sensitive and aware of nonverbal communication about everything, particularly emotionally. And that started with ayahuasca. It was a huge, huge difference.
I mean, now but one of the things that really, really impressed me about a lot of conversation we had is you know almost every single place in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, and Venice Beach to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain us more about this? I mean, I want to try. You tried every single place almost for food, right? What have you discovered, and how did it start?
Let's see. Well, I will first say that I haven't tried anywhere close to every restaurant in LA, but I try a lot. And I do my best. You know, I've lived here for 11 years, and I've always, you know, part of me, my parents were foodies, you know, they kind of got into that since I came out to LA. And so when I got here, I was just meat and potatoes, you know. My parents were coming into town, let's go to a steakhouse. But that's not LA food whatsoever, right? It's just like, that was my old way of being. You know, when I worked in entertainment, I started working at a talent agency. And when you're an assistant working for a talent agent, it's all about getting your boss into the cool place. You know, there's famous places that you go to because they're a scene, or, you know, everybody else is going to be schmoozing and doing business there, so you want to be seen there. And so I started keeping a list at that point in my life. And, you know, my ex really enjoyed going to the newest and the coolest. So, okay, all of a sudden now, I remember it was an email chain that was her, me, and her best friend. Her best friend was like asking for our list of places because we both loved it. And that's when the list started. It was only like 20 restaurants or something at that point. But
how many now?
Hundreds. Now it's, I don't even know. But, you know, after we split up, I sort of started getting very masculine with it and very Virgo with it. And now it's like organized west to east by neighborhood. And there's a list of ones that I want to try. And there's a list of ones that I've been to and can verify and vouch for. And it's just everywhere. So in entertainment, sort of the way it works is that you have lunch with people, or you do drinks. And it's sort of the way that you get to know people. And if you like them, then, you tell what's going on at your network, and then maybe they'll pitch you a show or whatever. How do we find a way to work together? Do I want to... Basically, entertainment works with people who can stand each other. Like, do I want to invest this much time working with this person? Because taking a TV show means we're going to be spending like 8 months together, at least talking once a week, if not more. So... Oh, okay, yeah, no, I do like you. All right, so let's find a show. Well, most of the time, people just have the one place that they go to, and they want to go closest to where they live, and that's just it. I was always happy to go wherever they wanted in town. I wanted to make things easy for them. What's closest to where you live, and either you have a suggestion that's like your favorite, or I want to try this thing that is over there. How about that? And so then my list started expanding. And after I quit that, post-Ayahuasca, I drove Lyft for a year. Like Uber, I drove Lyft. And everywhere I went, I would ask the same thing. Oh, I've never been to this neighborhood. What's good here? What's your favorite restaurant? And then I would add that to the list, and I'd try it. Some people have great taste. Some people have not great taste. But you can kind of tell how they talk about things. Oh, what's around here? I don't know. This taco place, I guess, is pretty good. That doesn't say I needed to try it. But they're like, oh my God, this place is amazing. And on Tuesday, they have dollar tacos. You gotta try this place. It's fucking great.
And by the way, which the best restaurant you'll invite everyone?
Oh man, what kind of food?
What's the one who is now coming to your mind?
It's hard. I mean, I think a gateway drug to LA food for me was sugarfish. I know there's snobs who will shit on sugarfish because it's not like the finest quality sushi in the world, and that's
sugarfish.
That's true, but sugarfish was my foray and entry into what good sushi was, and it's the quality of the rice. 90% of the quality of, I saw this on a Bourdain episode, 90% of the quality of sushi is determined by how they cook the rice. Whereas I just thought it was just like white rice. But they use a certain kind of like vinegar on it that it's literally like you don't want to leave a grain of rice behind. Like you eat every single fucking thing. And it's prefix. It was my first time eating nigiri, so the little like rice with the fish on top. I had just cut rolls before that. And that just like blew my mind. What is happening? What is this? Yuzu ponzu. Once I finally got a present to chili ponzu and yuzu ponzu and Japanese food. I already love Japanese food, but once I tasted those flavors of sugarfish, I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. So that was a big gateway drug for me. Street tacos are definitely a must for me. Felix, that we went to tonight.
Felix, yeah.
This pasta restaurant on Awakenny is unbelievable. If you want high-end...
Mind-blowing.
High-end, the best restaurants are En Naka in Culver City, which is like a Japanese kaiseki tasting menu, seasonal. It's a whole progression. Or Dialogue here in Santa Monica, which is Chef Dave Baran, who comes out of the Alinea family in Chicago.
What have you discovered doing all of this? What's your biggest discovery?
I think the biggest room for growth for me, I'm from Kansas originally. There's not a lot of kinds of food in Kansas. And out here, LA is famous for quote unquote immigrant food. Doesn't matter if it's Thai or
Spanish, yeah.
You name it. We have it. We have every single kind. And it's usually in a strip mall, and it usually doesn't look like it's very fancy. But fuck, man, it's so good. All of it. It could be, I don't even know. Indonesian street food. We've got that, and it's great. We've got...
So you discovered the taste on the flavor of tasting everything up.
Yeah, I think really what I got is exactly that. I discovered that being a picky eater robs you of living. I grew up like for 10 years or something, I didn't even want cheese on my hamburger. My mom's a picky eater, and so I adopted that, and so I was just like, I don't want cheese on my burger. And then, like, in retrospect, like, what are you doing, you idiot kid? You get a cheeseburger, And so even when I got here, there was a lot of ingredients that I didn't really know what they were, and that scared me. Why would I try that? I've never heard of that thing. But at some point, it just kind of clicked probably ayahuasca related, or maybe a little bit before that, that was just like,
I want to try everything.
Just try it. You know, worst case scenario, you don't like it. Okay, avoid it next time. And a lot of the times, like I had it for a while that I didn't like eggplant. Well, that was because when I ate eggplant, I ate it at a place that didn't really know how to cook it, and so it wasn't very good. And then I tried it at a place where they're talented and they know what they're doing, and then I was like, holy shit, have you guys tried eggplant? It's amazing. You know, so I just tried stuff, and the biggest thing I just got was the encouragement to explore. It made me want to go out and travel. It made me want to try every kind of food. It made me want to approach all kinds of food with love and open-mindedness. I don't know everything. I don't know anything. I don't know anywhere close to everything about food or about any certain kind of food. But I know that I fucking love it and I want more. And everywhere I travel, that's like the first thing I do is I look at food and like, where am I going to eat? I do that for people. I literally like, so this list that I made, you know, which now is getting made into it's the next phase of the website. It's going to go up where it's just lives there. And no matter where you are in Los Angeles, you pull up the map and you know, oh, these are the restaurants around here that are great. I can eat at any one of these and I'll be happy. You know, before I got here, I'd have friends who are like, hey man, I'm going on a date. She lives in this neighborhood. What should I take her? And I'd say, okay, you want to take her here. And it was always successful.
And what is your ready to go guide all over the world? Like one restaurant, it's going to be a challenge. One restaurant per country.
Yeah.
The ones you've been.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. That's easy. I have favorites everywhere. Peru, my favorite, let's see. I think my favorite in Peru is Maido. Maido is a Nikkei restaurant. It's bougie, so it's expensive. It's the number 7 restaurant in the world. But Nikkei cuisine comes from the marriage of Peruvian and Japanese cuisines. It's a fusion. And that happened naturally. So in the late 1800s, Peru is giant. It's the size of 3 Californias. There's so much farmland there, and they just don't have that many people. So they invited a bunch of Japanese over to help them tend the land, and a lot of them just stayed. It was a 2-year contract or something, and a lot of them just ended up staying, and they opened up restaurants in their homes. And then gradually, over decades, you know, the Japanese techniques and ingredients started creeping into the Peruvian ones, or what the foods that the Peruvians wanted to eat.
What the fuck?
And it just kind of became this natural marriage, and it just flourished in this beautiful thing. If you think about Italian food being built on the foundation of tomato and olive oil, this one is built on soy sauce and the ají pepper. The ají pepper is a spicy pepper from South America. There's like, I think, over 25 kinds, but they have a certain flavor to it, to the quality of the heat. And so that is like the thing that sits at the base of all of the stuff that's on top of it. And it's so good.
And how about Spain?
Spain. You know, I need to consult my phone on this. It's a restaurant in Sevilla, and it's called like the Black Sheep or something like that. And I'll look up I'll look it up so you can.
We'll put it on the notes too.
Yeah.
Jens, what are your demons, and how are you facing them?
What are my demons? Let's see. I think my demons are... I have a lot of demons, actually, but, you know, the ones that come up that I've gotten present to in the last couple of years, I would say, is I have had moments in my life where I was addicted to marijuana, and I was addicted to pornography. And I have people in my life who have done 12-step programs now, who have gotten me present to what addiction is. You also see this a lot in ayahuasca. That's kind of where I first got open-minded about it, because it's famous for helping people out of really hardcore addictions, right? And little bit of background, like I am a perfect storm of alcoholism. My dad is Native American and my mom is Irish. So good luck, buddy. And so in college, I blacked out for the first time. And then for so much of my 20s, it was spent just like binge drinking and blacking out and making an ass out of myself and waking up and doing it over again. And that was normal. Kansas City's a drinking city. College was college, you know, I was just a drinker. And after I worked with ayahuasca, I came back and like I can drink 8 drinks now, but I won't feel it, like at all. It might be so that my voice, like my mouth, will skip a word here or there, and so maybe I'm like something in there isn't working, but my brain doesn't feel intoxicated whatsoever. So I've heard that is a common, maybe not common, but that is a thing that has happened through working with ayahuasca. She turns that thing off in your brain to protect you. So what I realized is that addictions aren't this horrible thing that we can't look at and point at and just never take their call or anything like that. Addictions are just places where you go out of consciousness that you're powerless against, that are just like programs and patterns that just run.
So would you say your demons are addictions to alcohol, drugs?
Weed, not all of them, but certain
marijuana.
ones, yeah. They're places where I cope.
How are you facing them? Through ayahuasca, through paying attention?
Exactly. Through curiosity, through heightened attention and noticing where my patterns are. I have an amazing partner who will call me out on stuff and point things out to me, even if it's the ugly thing that I don't want. I noticed a pattern which was absolutely true with my relationship with my ex-girlfriend. I got into this habit where whatever she was saying, something must have happened with us in having sex one time where I felt like I was made wrong. And so then I started to withhold my sex. But I still selfishly wanted to climax. I would masturbate. I would like hurry up and get home from work before she got home so I could masturbate, and then I just didn't have any appetite for sex. And so it didn't matter. Except then I was depriving her of sex, right? So she just, drove a wedge between us, and eventually it split us up. But what I've noticed with my current partner is that I'll have moments where she leaves to go to a meeting or something like that, and I have this urge that comes up that's just like what I want more than anything is to smoke weed and jerk off. And so
I got the demons.
Exactly. So I noticed that it was that act of, oh, I'm finally free. I can do the thing that I want to do. Except that's not the thing that I actually want to do. I want to achieve things in life, and I want to connect with people, and I want to,
It's kind of
totally, but
tricky.
For sure.
Really tricky.
There's a separation that you need to do, right? Because we all have our demons, but we feel ashamed of them. And this sense that your demons are you is where you get into trouble. Because you don't want to acknowledge
you
that
need to
that's
accept
part of you.
them, yeah.
And also give yourself a break and separate that. Because that's not you. Like my reliance on smoking weed at whatever point in my life that I was doing that every day, that's not Jens. That is the
craving.
That is the addict that lives within Jens that makes me want to do certain things. And that that loop of smoking weed and then jerking off and then depriving my girlfriend of sex 8 years ago, whenever that was just a defense mechanism, because then it was like, see, if you have sex with somebody, they're going to be mad at you because you're going to do it wrong, and then you're a failure, and then you might as well just not do it at all. And then, oh, here's this thing that's private, and you could do that, and it's so on and so forth.
And I'm talking with demons. You talk at least 2 or 3 times. You mention self-worth. What will be your biggest or your most important recommendation for developing or for working on your self-worth? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, the modalities I know to work for transformation. I mean, there's a lot of books that I would do. There's a lot of experiences that I would recommend.
Which book would you recommend for working on
the first
self-worth?
For self-worth specifically, I don't know if I have like a self-worth per se book. The book that came to mind,
or technique that might help,
that opened my mind, was a book about past life regression. It's a very quick book. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters. And all you need to know about that is that it is written by a medical doctor who ran 4 different hospitals in Miami. Science, right? He has no incentive to tell you past life regression is a thing. It sounds crazy. He works in the scientific community. Everyone's going to say he's a quack, right? But he had this experience through this one specific client that opened his mind to it and sort of got him present to the fact that there was this possibility that we've all had past lives and that some of our past lives were led to the demons that haunt us today. So that was one that, in reading it, was the first time, I don't know if it was the way it was written or the time it was given to me, but it was the most impactful book because it got me present to the possibility. I turned from a why should I believe this person to a why not. And it sort of just ignited this curiosity into me where I stopped like deciding no. You know, there's this thing that happens in academia where you just are trained to say no automatically. And that is what keeps you living. That's what keeps you from living. And that's why I have yes tattooed on my body. Because if I say no, and people see this, they'll point at my arm and say it says yes, and I'll be like, you're absolutely right. I shouldn't say no. Let's give this a shot. Because what if I'm wrong? You know?
What if?
If I'm wrong, okay, then
I learn it.
All I lose is my perspective.
And I'm sure you're going to
I'm
learn.
present to this whole new thing. That's amazing. So why am I saying no?
And what's your favorite book?
My favorite book?
Yeah.
I think my favorite book...
or the one you have gifted the most?
I've gifted that one a good amount. I would say A Natural History of the Senses by Diane Ackerman. I love that one. She basically looks at... This is a poet. I believe she's a professor at Cornell. And she examines each of your 5 senses through the lens of a poet throughout the history of it. So she goes back. It's very interesting. It's sitting right here on the shelf if you want to check it out.
Sure.
It's also a great book because you can read it out of order. You can read the one sense and then put it down and come back to it any other time, and you don't need, to follow the narrative or anything like that. It's great.
Sometimes.
It's great. It's a good one. You can put it in the bathroom.
More than sometimes.
Yeah, totally. And so she goes back historically. She's like, okay, so let's talk about hearing. Well, she goes back through the history books, and so, in ancient Greece, this is what they thought hearing meant and how they viewed it and so on and so forth. And then, in ancient China, they actually had a different way of looking at it and so on. And so it does that for each of the senses. It also talks about synesthesia. I found it just incredible fuel for my curiosity and how I go about my everyday. We were talking about this today, right?
It's because she approaches from so many different perspectives.
Exactly. You and I broke bread tonight, right? We were talking about this at dinner. It's like if you think about your senses, there's a hierarchy of intimacy involved, right? I can see things that are miles away. I can hear things, thunder, and then I count from how long I hear it after lightning, and I know that's miles away. I can smell things down the street. I can touch things.
This is a subtle art of noticing things.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can, touch things on the outside of my body, but in order to taste things, I need to be penetrated by that thing. So you can see how taste is the most intimate of your senses, which is why eating is such a sensuous thing, and how it's like there's famously you can get introduced food to the bedroom, and it's like a romantic thing of like all these. You can see how it delights your senses.
Just be careful with bread and oil, right?
Yeah, bread and oil I don't think necessarily belongs in there, but
not the rye bread.
I'll leave that to you, bud. If you want toast, it gets a little crumbly.
And Jens, we're gonna go for quick rapid fire questions. What are you saying to yourself when you are down?
I'm saying
for
down,
motivating, for inspiring, for giving you momentum.
I need to get back to my practices. I need to exercise. I need to meditate. I need to reconnect with purpose.
What is your bulletproof everyday practice or habit?
Let's see. I wake up in the morning. I Om. I think my perfect day looks like this. I wake up. I Om. I have a sitting meditation. I have a hape ceremony. Hape is a tobacco snuff from the Amazon. Very grounding. I read for an hour. After that, I'm allowed to look at my phone, but I prefer not to.
I do the same.
I prefer not to. I'd rather just write
because you're incentivizing yourself to finish everything to see the iPhone. So you wait.
Exactly. That phone is just a black hole of distraction.
Fuck yeah.
You're good luck. But that's what all these screens, they just distract you. And so if you can get the longest you can last without doing that, it's perfect. So then I would work until lunch. If I'm writing, I would do 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, so on and so forth until like 1:30. Then I go get lunch, come back, do more of that. I would probably do yoga either in the evening or in the morning. Have dinner, cook dinner with my girlfriend, get to connect with her, and then at night maybe read a little bit, probably have sex with her, and then go to bed, do it all over again. Sounds pretty great to me.
What are you writing right now?
Right now, I'm writing... The thing that's coming to mind that I haven't even really started. But so, you mentioned Peach Hill earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Peach Hill's this amazing idea. It's my friend Jeff Hortman's idea. And essentially, it's... we're a book production company. There's a crowdsourcing element to it that if you want a book, you want to write a book, or you want a book written about a certain subject. I just want to read a book about Spartacus. We can do that, and we can produce that book for you.
That's amazing.
And we can do it pretty cheaply too. But they also launched we also launched a journalistic wing. And it hasn't gone too far. We just kind of did it as a test run. But last year, I was fortunate enough to be given the assignment, best assignment in the world. I was asked to write a gonzo, aka Hunter S. Thompson style article about Burning Man. And so I did that. It lives on Medium under a Peach Hill cover. And it might be the thing that I'm most proud of having written. Everyone who reads it seems to get the sense that they were really there. I've had people communicate.
I will put it in the notes.
Yeah, it's called This Is Real Life, Probably. And I've had friends that were read it from their desk job and started crying and had to quit midway because they just missed it so much. And
I'm gonna read it right now.
And one of our camp members this year passed away. And
the brother of Andrew, right?
Yeah,
if
exactly.
I remember.
Yeah, Weston. AKA Shipwreck.
I saw the video. I mean, fuck.
Yeah. And I wasn't approaching this year's burn with the sense of writing an article at all. But when you asked that, what am I writing now? My head went to, I should write an article for Weston.
That's it.
And so, that's good. I need to...
Great.
That'll be next.
How do you face
Anxiety?
Anxiety. Exactly. Thank you. Getting better.
Let's see. Anxiety. How do I face anxiety? I would say that I'm not a particularly anxious person. My first piece of advice is when you feel anxious, to close your eyes and take a deep breath and look into what sensation you're feeling in your body. I'm feeling electricity in my arms. I'm feeling heat behind my face. Describe that.
Putting words.
And what that does is it puts a physicality to that anxiety.
I love it.
And then it lets you know that, oh, this anxiety is just an energy that lives in heat form behind my face. And knowing that, getting that noticing allows you space where you know this is just a thing this is a feeling that's happening in your body, and it's not going to end your world, and therefore it's something you can survive.
And it's distracting you again.
Exactly. So what the tendency for anxiety is to take over you and send you in this direction. But really, it's your body communicating to you. I'm feeling anxiety. Don't follow that feeling of anxiety. Get curious about what's bringing up that anxiety. Because that's the thing. That's the way you get out of it. Oh, I'm anxious about money. Oh,
Wow.
Okay. Well, then what can I do about money? Rather than let me spend the whole night freaking out and then being horrible to my girlfriend and then I need 4 drinks to just fall asleep because I'm fucking insane. No. Just look at the thing and make a plan.
Who is the person who has inspired you the most and why?
I say the first person who comes to mind right now is my sister. Like I said, I've done a lot of transformational work this year. One thing that we've done is the Landmark Forum. And what happened for my sister was that she called me on her Friday night. It's a Friday to Saturday, Sunday. She called me on Friday night and explained that she'd been keeping a secret from me. And that was that she had been raped 3 times, all within 1 year when she was 20 years old. She's 29 today. And she had lived with that secret for 9 years. She hadn't told anybody in our family. She was just different. You know, growing up, we were very close. We were great friends. And meant a lot to each other. And then throughout her 20s, it was very difficult to be around her. It was very difficult to even engage in a conversation with her because it just seemed like there was a ticking time bomb. You know, I had to be walking on eggshells. I almost couldn't look at her to some degree. And she called me and told me that. And since having gone through that experience, a whole weight has been lifted. She's a whole different person. The sunshine is back. Not only that, she's taken the power back from this incident. She's throwing an event on the 20th here in LA called Support Your Local Girl Gang, which is a combination spin and boxing class. The proceeds of which are donated to the Rape Foundation. So not only is she freed from the shackles of her own rape,
It's empowering.
she's also empowering other victims to do the same thing.
Good job.
To become survivors and not victims. It's amazing.
Very inspiring.
And this has happened within less than 6 months. It's fucking amazing. So that's who the first person who comes to mind.
Let's go to a different one. Let's change the tide. What's the worst restaurant you've been?
Worst restaurant? I don't know. I'm not really interested in the worst restaurant. I don't want to pour fuel on bad stuff. You know, like I said.
What is success? What it means success to you?
Success.
What's the first thing that comes to mind? Just one thing.
Happiness, love. How much love is in your life?
And what it means failure to you.
What is failure to me? Failure to me is not being present being distracted by things that don't really matter, being lost in the trivial and missing life, which is happening all around you. That's a failure to me. Looking at your phone all day instead of looking at somebody in the eye.
Jens, you have like a primetime Super Bowl ad, one sentence, one phrase, and you go live. What would you say?
I think I already said it. I would just, 30 seconds, I would just build slowly with music. First question is, who are you? Second one is, who do you want to be? And then it ends with, what's stopping you? That's it. Because it's you. The answer is, how do we get you out of there?
Is there anything else you want to add?
To that commercial?
To the interview.
To the interview. Let's see. Man, I could talk your ear off. It's always an easy conversation with you. What I would add to that is, it's been amazing to have you in this house. We're going to miss you sincerely. I love the appetite you have for pushing yourself and challenging yourself and trying new things which sound fucking insane, but you do them anyway and prove that they're not insane at all. I love how much you make a difference. I love that you want to help, unemployed people find work. You care about the homeless. You're doing this year where you're spending a different month in a different place the entire year. When you talk about people you always talk about them in their highest. It's not my friend Mike who's, he's kind of a dick sometimes, but he does this. No, it's like, this is my friend Eric, who's the most inspiring person I've ever met. You have a good sense for looking at the best in people. We all have stuff that is not our best, but you recognize the good stuff, and that's what you hold on to in people. It's an amazing characteristic to have, and it's been a pleasure seeing that. So thank you so much. If
I were not this response, maybe I wouldn't ask this question, but I'm blessed. I feel the same. We are recording here from in Santa Monica, in the apartment, in the house. It's 12 o'clock at midnight, and the conversation, I think, could continue for hours. I guess. Totally. I have the feeling, and this is what really makes this podcast not just for listeners, but for us. I think it's a space for open conversation, and people, you listener, can maybe can take 1, 2, 3, at least one takeaway is gonna serve you for sure. So this is what we created here. It's kind of selfish because now as I'm recording more and more podcasts, the audience is growing, but the more audience I have, the more podcasts I'm recording, the less I'm doing because I want to be liked, or I want to have approval, or I just want because I know I'm going to create a magic conversation between the other person and I can get to ask questions that I would know to know about this person, because I think this person is special, and at the same point someone like me maybe is listening to this podcast and is connecting with us. So James, thank you again for your magic, for your personality, for your vulnerability, your soul, and also for putting this soul to work in the things that really matters. And I wish you I don't wish you anything. I'm just gonna see you soon, and I hope in the retreat with Ship Rise.
Oh, yeah, all ships rise.
Please tell us where we can find you.
The website that just went up is called shipsrise.com. That is where I offer my transformational retreats. I coach people, and I also bring them down to Peru 8 at a time to work with ayahuasca and pay that healing back and keep that medicine alive and working and making a difference in the world. I also offer, I will plan your food trips because that is a passion of mine, obviously. My girlfriend is going to be leading in a relationship and intimacy retreat next year.
Vanessa Lingis, which we're gonna, it's going to be have in this podcast, and you'll have the link for her interview in the notes.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She is.
And then I will, on top of that, when I paint murals, I do that under the name Pamplemousse Menthol. So that's on Instagram. I have, I think, all Ships Rise, I think, is my Insta for the blog. Check me out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been super fun.
And this is it. If you have any question, you can contact with Jens. If you have any question for me, you can contact through my blog, isragarcia.com, in iTunes. You don't need to leave a review. You don't need to comment. You don't need to like. You just need to do something with this. Take action. Because if you don't disrupt yourself, you'll be disrupted. And this is gonna be more painful.
Esto ha sido Disrupt Everything. Esta encuentra el riesgo antes de que el riesgo te encuentre a ti.